Botero Coffee Company. This is a picture we took last week with the whole team down in Barcelona, Quindío, right in front of our dry mill with our dog Bruno. Slide, please. So this is our team to the left, Mauricio, who is the brainchild and had the family connections necessary to get this started. Fun fact, he and I met at a Panera Bread in June of 2021 in Stafford, Virginia, when I was at the basic school. I've been in the Marine Corps now for 6 years. I'm a captain, and I have done 10 real estate value add and development projects over the last 18 months to 2 years. JT to the right is one of our general partners, and he's our chief sales officer. He is all over the place, from doing consults with producers in Colombia to going to the West Coast, East Coast to do consults with distribution companies, roasters, and different retail establishments that we're working relationships with. Bottom left, we have Diane. Diane is our chief of Colombian operations. So he is the brainchild behind both wet and dry milling, which are two different types of coffee processing. He is a renowned local expert who also does consulting for other people and teaches them actually how to do dry milling and wet milling, which is what he really brings to the table for us. And then to the right is Eric, who's Colombian logistics, moving coffee back and forth, and is an expert at sourcing new and rare coffee varietals. Slide, please. All right, so welcome to Barcelona, Quindío. So as you can see, we're sort of central Colombia. We are in what is called the Coffee Triangle. It is the state of Quindío, which is known for producing some of the best coffee, not only in Colombia, but in South America as a whole. On the right with the arrow, you can see what our milling facility looks like after we have gotten a delivery. It is right on the edge of Barcelona, so it's really convenient for folks to walk to after work, or sorry, walk to for work, because most of the folks live around there. And there's a major artery road you can see in the middle there. That road is needed to access most of the farms in Quindío. So we have a strategic location for if anybody needs to access our facility and use our services. Slide, please. All right, so now JT is going to walk you through our business model here.
So this is a diagram of our businesses in each country and their different roles. So the center left and center right, that's going to be Botero Colombia and Botero USA. So starting in the bottom left corner, we've got coffee producers. They take their stuff to Botero Colombia, which is our headquarters, the dry mill. They will bring coffee as milling clients locally, and also as the producers whose coffee we sell both in Colombia and in the US. So from there, going up to the top left corner, that's our Colombian distribution, whether that's coffee green, coffee roasted, that's the coffee that gets sold again back in Colombia. Moving over to the right side, we've got Botero USA, and going from the top to the bottom, that's our coffee direct to consumers, our coffee to distributors, and our coffee to cafe and restaurants. So that is green and roasted, and direct to customer and B2B as well.
Tucker, you're on mute.
You got me. Traction thus far. So Botero Coffee Company has milled over 73,000 kilograms of pergamino, which is what coffee looks like after it has been wet milled, and then we dry mill it to turn it into green coffee. We've assembled a team of local contractors, which includes a group of single mothers that do hand sorting and selection of every individual bean of coffee by size, shape, and quality. And then we have sold $35,000 worth of coffee to date. Our supply chain delivers coffee from tree to cup in under 60 days, which is much different than what you'd see from the competition. And then on the right, you have depicted what it looks like when we palletize. So The boxes, those are 12 kilo bricks. There's two of them in each box, just vacuum sealed bags. And then those big burlap sacks, those are what a 70 kilogram bag of coffee looks like. Slide, please. All right, so Mauricio's going to walk you through all of our unfair advantages here.
Yep. So as we started this business, we started first with the dry mill, and that has become a key component of one of our advantages. We even bought coffee early on in our journey where we had the coffee before the dry mill purchase, had to take it to a dry mill, and quickly learned about some of the shenanigans, some of the stuff that could happen in another person's dry mill. We now have that in house. We can control quality in house. We watch everything that's happening with this coffee, how it's packaged, how the machines are cleaned. There's now all risk eliminated about what could possibly be contaminated from the coffee that we buy before we ship it from Colombia to the United States. We've now removed that risk. We also, as a side benefit, we get some byproduct that comes through the mill process. We get to keep that and sell it for other products. Another big thing that we have compared to the other competition is that we started this business without taking out a huge, massive finance deal. We scrapped together our own dollars as founders, and we put it into our business ourselves. We took a small friends and family loan as well when we needed it to help us complete the construction of the mill. And other than that, it's all been within our own money. The farm, though, when we do buy it, one thing that would be good is that it will be seller financing terms. It won't be, what we typically are used to in the United States with mortgages. We'll buy it through the old person landowner situation that's very typical in South America, where we'll strike a deal with them without a bank, without real estate agents. It will just all be direct from buyer to seller. The bulk margin that we do because of some of our strategic partners is a big advantage. We are one of the first Colombian coffee exporters that have exported coffee with a strategic air freight partner that sells and ships flowers. That's opened up some new avenues and some new calculations for us to run where, depending on the necessity or the urgency of the coffee, we could potentially send coffee out that air freight partner for very competitive prices and for much quicker delivery instead of sea freight. And then for having our own coffee expertise in house, again, Dian Pantevis is one of our unfair advantages. Everybody needs a Dian, not everybody has one. We have an Eric who can speak both English and Spanish and can cup coffees. We have an in-house engineer who builds machines from scratch, all in-house. Without him, he literally keeps the machines running. We have our own architect, our own general contractor who helps us with the scoping out of new projects and building of new buildings. The goodwill that we have within the town of Barcelona can't be really unspoken. Like it's so key that this town loves us. It's something that we always get asked about within our friends and family. Like, oh, how does it work? How does it work with working in another town? They love us. They know who we are. We're helping to employ their moms and their employees. We're helping to feed their restaurants. We're helping to play with them soccer. They needed a couple of people to help in their intramural soccer league. So we're very well ingratiated and integrated into this town, and it's a win-win. They need us. They love us. We need them. They help, and we help them as well. And having the Colombian American roots that this company was based off with my family and with my last name being very Colombian, being able to speak both languages, being able to go into Colombian farms and be welcomed into these families like we're one of them. But then also the inverse, while in the United States, being able to go to cafes and roasters and say, no, we really do operate in Colombia. This isn't just some story that we've made up or we talk about it with fancy buzzwords. Like, look, here's the pictures of me at the farm, meeting farmers. Do you want to talk to them right now? It's a huge competitive advantage that we have that we definitely take advantage of. And on the Colombian side of our business, we have some common things you'll see in any business, right? We have income and we have expenses, some that are more common to American businesses and some that are a little different for a Colombian business. But first things first, on the top left, we have the purchase and financing that we are planning to do with this fundraise to purchase a coffee farm. Ideally, the coffee farm that we're on right now. The farm that we're on right now does have a 7-year lease, and we're going into year 4 of this lease now. And the target purchase price of this farm, or a farm like it, of matching criteria, would be a $250,000 purchase, which is pretty standard for farms of that size and in this part of the country. Again, seller financing terms, so very flexible with how we can structure the deal with the owner. But there is an acquisition fee and, of course, a monthly mortgage there. The capital expenditures is a big part of the raise. Key component is that if you look in the bottom left corner, that PASIA fund. So it's almost like an annuity. It's almost like a compounding interest fund of buying and selling coffee, not taking away from the original principle of what we start off with, which would be $80,000, and it'll output some income, and you'll see that in the Passia fund on the top right corner. It outputs about $5,000 worth of income without taking away the original principle. But again, another key capital expenditure is we have to build out the wet mill component of our vertically integrated company. Right now, we only have a dry mill, but when we do this fundraise, we'll go ahead and start the process of building a wet mill when we purchase a farm, which will allow us to drop our costs of making coffee and producing coffee, and we'll drop the cost of our green coffee purchasing. Operating expenses, pretty typical stuff, but one thing I'd point out is that the payroll will increase year over year as we grow. We will need more mill administrators, more hands in the machines making the coffee from parchment to green. Our rent does fluctuate a little bit with the last few years, but we also take the rent off and switch it to a mortgage once we purchase the farm. And the other thing of note from these are just electricity. The electricity will go up with industrial power, but our house power stays the same. Continued here is some of our expenses. And finally, our net operating income, you'll see at the bottom of the screen. So we've been telling investors here that for the first year to 2 years, we do not have plans to distribute cash. We want this business to grow. We want to fund this business with our capital expenses, execute on our business plan. But then in year 2, 3, and 4, you should start seeing these numbers start increasing. And then as far as our cash and cash return, it starts getting more healthy after year 2 and on, as we are not doing any, the capital expenditures are now executed and they've been flushed out. And now we're really starting to make some returns on our original investments.
So keep in mind that was the Colombian side of the business, so Botero Colombia. Now we're moving over to JT to sort of walk us through what Botero USA is going to be able to do with distribution.
So distribution of product happens in 3 ways: green coffee to roasters, roasted coffee to wholesalers. Now both of those are B2B, and then roasted coffee direct to consumer. That's B2C. I'm about to address each of those individually. So starting in the top right corner, some upcoming events that we've got that are exciting. Wild Fork is a growing nationwide grocery store chain focused on quality and traceability. They started in meats with every cut, flash frozen at origin. This fall, they're expanding into beverages, and we're working to be one of the first beverages that they work with. Their branding of quality and traceability makes it a perfect match for us, whether we private label for them with their logo on the package or the Botero logo on the package. Next up, we've got invitations from Colombian consulates in Miami, first for an award ceremony where we'll be setting up a table. And also in San Diego for the Colombian Independence Day. Both of those are great opportunities to sell roasted coffee direct to consumer and to even pre-sell some of the new coffees that we're planning to launch in the upcoming months. Let's see, next up, we've got some distributors. We've got lots of distributors already getting started for us. We've got one in the Chicago Midwest area. That's our friend Richard. We've got another friend who's taking on the Southeast Asia market, mostly Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore. And then we've got another team member in Colombia who's going to be doing major city distribution and get us in some cafes in Bogota, Medellin. And then he's excited to expand us into Europe as well. Moving down to the center and the bottom, I'll talk about my green coffee sales experience. So I've been taking Botero Coffee with me everywhere I go, and I've picked up quite a bit on the way. So we've gotten purely positive feedback on our product quality, our traceability, and our pricing. There is a large demand in the U.S. for women-produced coffee. I see very often among the roasters that they're personally interested in exotic coffees, but their audience, their customers, are a majority of people who are using milk and syrups with their drinks. So you see that represented in the pie chart in the top left, where a majority of our sales are going to be wholesale volume coffee. This is going to be our standard wash process, more of the commodity grade coffee. But there is still a large interest in the specialty coffee, where many coffee shops will have a rotating menu of an exotic coffee for their existing customer base that is educated on it. And they also like to have the opportunity to be the source of education and information to bring new people into specialty coffee and the specialty coffee processes. So some of the hurdles that we've encountered along the way largely have to do with payment terms. So many people are ready to buy, they love our product, the quality, everything about it. But most significant buyers in that area, it's industry standard for net 30 payment terms, and we have yet to be able to provide that. So that's something that investment is going to open up for us. Another hurdle that we've recently encountered, we had huge success and huge demand following the Specialty Coffee Association Expo in April. We sold very much coffee, and then we had a delayed fulfillment due to an unexpected logistics price hike and 2 weeks of negotiating that back down. Because of that, we felt obligated to provide refund opportunities to all customers, both for the delay and the increase in shipping costs. To our delight, not a single customer took us up on the refund. They applauded our transparency and explained that our pricing and quality was such an unbelievably fair deal that a 10% increase in logistics costs was negligible and still a terrific deal for them. So in the top of this slide, you can see a heat map of consumer spending on coffee in the U.S. So this is the map that I'm going to use to guide my sales path. So I'm located in Florida. We're going to put our warehouse most likely in Florida. And, my first route is going to be to drive up the Atlantic coast, follow that dark line running up the coastline, taking 95 up to that Maryland, DC, Virginia area where there's a lot of heat in that area. And then come back down, taking 85 down that Appalachian line of coffee purchasing. After that, I'll be taking the airplanes everywhere I can go in priority of the heat map. Slide, please. So, roasted coffee direct to customer. This is going to be on e-commerce. We're using our friends Practical Effects. They're experts in e-commerce and advertising. They do this very successfully for many food and beverage companies already, even another coffee brand. So, going through quick definitions, CAC is going to be cost to acquire a customer, and ROAS is return on ad spend. So the plan that Practical Effects follows is spending the first 3 months testing everything from pricing models to different audiences. Then the next 3 months are spent pushing the most efficient audiences all the way to maximization. We start to see diminishing returns on ad spend, and that's where we expand into new audiences and continue to grow our audiences and repeat the cycle. So the system pays for itself within the first 3 months, and is a very proven way to sell e-commerce products, and in our case, a great way to get our roasted coffee across the country in the U.S.
So now Mauricio is going to break through the container breakdown. So one of the big hurdles that we have is been that we are limited to essentially air freight and air freight only. What having containers will allow us to do is, one, really help with our margins. Two, it'll help with our predictability of pricing. And then three, it's going to help us with those financing terms, because all the companies that are interested in financing your inventory are going to want it to be in the United States the whole time. So, Mauricio?
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to open up some doors for us in a market that we want to play in. Starting on the top left corner is some standard numbers and percentages that we want to make everybody familiar with. I would start off with, of course, you heard about the sack of coffee and a pallet of coffee, so we use these numbers as part of our calculations. But the margin these are numbers that we've created. These are our standards that we've agreed upon. And as you break coffee down into smaller sizes, you sell it for a higher margin. But if you sell more coffee, then you sell for lower margins and larger volumes. So a container would be, in our calculations, a 10 pallet full container. And as you go in the top there in the middle, top middle, you'll see some pricing that we use to calculate the profitability of the container coffee game. We kind of categorize these into bulk coffees and premium coffees. You've heard us talk about a little bit of both here. And that number represents that coffee landed in the United States for what we can sell it based on the margins for profitability. As you move to the right, you'll see the packaging prices. If you were to sell an entire 12 kilo vacuum sealed brick of coffee, both for bulk or for premium, you'll see the price differences. But what really starts getting interesting is if you can play with the levers here of how much of what you're going to fill this container with, and then when this coffee does land in the United States, you take it off that container, you get those pallets, and you put them in your warehouse. Depending on your clientele and depending on your demand, how you're going to break those sacks of coffee and those pallets of coffee down, and depending on how you do that, is what your profitability is going to end up being. You show here on the right side when you go into container composition, as some of our numbers as we were estimating for specifically our first container, we were planning on doing a bulk coffee and premium coffee split right down the middle. We're going to fill up that container and buy 5 pallets worth of bulk coffee and 5 pallets worth of these premium specialty coffees. And as we do that, we start planning out with this container composition being mixed between bulk and premium. And as we break them down into both 12 kilogram sizes, sold in 70 kilos, or sold by the pallet, what our revenue is going to be. So I don't show the percentages here, but just as just an overall example, we're planning on the premium side. You can tell clearly on that 12 kilo size number that we're going to sell premium mostly by the 12 kilo brick size. That's what specialty coffee roasters who receive this type of coffee are accustomed to, and it's easier to hold and carry, and also with a higher margin, lower volume product, it's the way it's more typically sold. But the inverse for bulk is that it's more often sold in these 70 kilo sacks. So JT will get an order, let me get 210 kilos of coffee, so it'll be 370 kilo sacks. We'll put it on a pallet, ship it out the warehouse, and so you'll see why that number is bigger compared to the other sizes. Again, these are all levers that we play with as we see how our revenue gets distributed amongst the different types of coffee we have. And then moving again in this clockwise motion on the container costs, using those numbers for, again, our plans for this first pallet. What does that turn out to? Well, it's going to be a total container cost of $104,000. And as we look at allocating our overhead, we have a total annual overhead that we've calculated. We split that up amongst the containers that we're planning to do per year. And in a calendar year for the first year, we're estimating to do at least 6 containers with a stretch goal of 10. So that would break out a number into around $40,000 of overhead that you would disperse amongst each container. So all leading there towards the middle, the final here is you take your costs away from the revenue and you see what your net profit is going to be per container. And for just one container, we can break even and be profitable with 96% of that container. What gets more interesting is when we start buying more containers worth of coffee, selling more containers worth of coffee, you really start getting more profitable as you spread these overhead costs amongst many containers. Another lever you pull is you sell more premium coffee versus bulk. Or what's not represented in these numbers or on the slide is what happens when you just pre-sell a whole container worth of bulk coffee and never even needs to get to your warehouse. It can go straight from port directly to a large buyer of coffee. These are the levers that we start playing with in our underwriting and our performance behind the scenes to be more profitable. We reduce costs, or we sell coffee for more money, or we change the distribution of bulk versus premium. And slides are going backwards.
You're going backwards.
All right, check it.
Okay, so the offering that we're doing here is a 506C Regulation D limited partner investment. So minimum investment term here is going to be $50,000. The way that we're doing the split is it is a 70% split to the partner until they hit a 12% average annualized return hurdle, at which point the distributions will automatically fit through our automated distribution software to give the investor a 30% return. So you will get continual distributions. It's just 70% until you hit that 12% hurdle, and then 30% thereafter. So the hold period here is indefinite. This is sort of a generational type investment. The capital should remain invested until you decide to do a strategic exit or a buyout, and that will be just a one-on-one consult with whoever asks for a buyout. We reserve the right to refuse that, but it is unlikely after year 5 that we wouldn't table those conversations pretty formally. Next slide. So getting into it, we're really targeting, and this is pretty conservative here, but a 2x equity multiple by year 10. We're going to do a catch up in year 3. So years 1 and 2, there's no distributions, which just means a full reinvestment into growth of the company. And then year 3, there's a catch up distribution. So the goal is to hit a 36% AAR. So we'll keep it 70% until you hit 36 in year 3. And then year 4, 5, 6, and on, it'll be that same 70-30 up to 12. Again, 3 scalable revenue engines are your green coffee container sales, roasted coffee distribution, and the Colombian milling. So vertically integrated supply chain, right, which means that we hit the margins to ourselves. So we can play with the margin of all the coffee that we're buying in Colombia. We can play with the margins of the milling services, and then we can play with the margins of what we sell them, both wholesale and retail, to make sure that we really juice the return for everyone. And then the US warehousing lets us play the international arbitrage game. So we're just playing with dollars versus pesos here. So as far as investment steps, we ask that you review and sign the offering documents before June 30th. Those will be available for signature in the portal tomorrow. We're using a software called Cashflow Portal, and there's just sort of a delay in the updating, but those documents are available to be viewed at this time, and they have been finalized. And then as far as funding, we ask that funds are sent before July 31st. Cash is king, obviously, but self-directed IRAs, 401ks, which are transferred into self-directed IRAs, or TSP if you are no longer in the military, that can also be directed into this investment. So just to recap, we're taking both cash accounts and retirement accounts can be directed into this. Slide, please. So what to expect from us? Radical transparency, right? We showed you the pro formas that we have on our 3 business models, which are Colombia, green coffee sales in the United States to larger companies and private roasters, and then roasted coffee distribution, both B2C and B2B. A live look at our operations, right? So our social media is pretty active. I was down there posting at least 2 times a day, every day that I was there for the last 2 weeks. And then we do have a tour program as well. So for every $1,000 invested, that is a free day in Colombia. So we won't cover transportation to Colombia, but we will cover every piece of what happens while you're in Colombia and put on a sort of guided tour for you, which will include your vacation rental will be covered, your transportation will be taken care of. And then all the activities that you do in Colombia, we will offer to sort of curate that for you. We're available 24/7 via phone or email for our investors. If you have any questions, you want to get a particular coffee offering sent to you, you will get a very advantageous terms on roasted coffee direct to customer. And that wraps our slides.